Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, with the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Hello out there. I hope you're having a good weather where you are, because this weather's been a little wacky-tobacky, and I know Texas is very surprised, and that's putting it mildly, with regards to the lovely blizzard that they had. From what I read, hopefully things are getting back to some sort of normalcy there. However, I know that has not stopped anybody from having sex, achieving an orgasm, good old romp in the bed. But, you know, we always talk about having that enormous orgasm, how to get there, what to do to improve it, how you can better it in ways in which your partner is just, a equally helping, willing person in the bedroom. All of the good stuff that gets us to where we need to feel good. But there are those out there who have difficulties having orgasms. And believe it or not, there is an actual name for that. And that is what our topic of today's show is, which is Anorgasmia. It is an orgasm dysfunction. Happens in both men and women. And I know the minute I say that, everybody probably has their own view on who is affected by this. And of course, everybody's going to the man and saying, oh yeah, they can't get it up. Well, something really doesn't have anything to do with that. Or others are running to women saying that, oh, they're terrible and they can't get an orgasm. It's their fault. Stop pushing the blame, as it does happen to both. And we are going to look at the men and women who do suffer from anorgasmia. But really, what the hell is it, aside from the fact that it is the inability to achieve an orgasm? Or, us having difficulty getting to that. It's taken a little longer with the foreplay, a little, longer in every direction. And there actually was a movie about this. It was called The Short Bus. It was directed by John Cameron Mitchell. And one of the characters in the film is a sex writer who can't come. How straight to the point is that? And it goes on to find out as to why they are having this issue. And, I haven't seen it, but it is there. When I was looking up, specifically things with regards to this topic subject matter, it was there, believe it or not, and I'm sure it's not the only film that's out there about it. There are two main types of orgasmic disorders that are out there: primary and secondary. How layman can you be? Obviously, primary means a woman and or man, they have it as woman only, but we'll go and or man, has never had an orgasm. Yes, found more in women than in men, but we'll go with that. Secondary type of orgasmic disorder is that individual has had an orgasm in the past, but now can't or cannot, in proper terms, due to any number of factors, including sexual trauma, believe it or not, which everybody probably thinks that's like the number one. Another reasoning would be for that pelvic surgery, childbirth in women, or medications, and we all know that medications do affect, our sexual ability. A lot more sometimes in men than in women, but yes, there is medication out there that has a tendency to interfere with our good times. And a lot of people will stop taking that medication so that they can have sex, but yet bringing the problem to light, and that causes other issues outside of the bedroom. So, you got to find a happy medium with it, really, because you are feeling better because of the fact that you are taking the medication. Not because you're not taking it. It is not a cure. It's because you are taking it. And it's making you better able to be in control of things in your life. So just a side note. So with that, you always have to go to the doctor if you realize that you are having difficulties in the sexual bedroom. Don't stop putting blame on other people, your partner or anybody else but yourself. And there isn't really a blame, because it really isn't. It may be something that you are going through this anorgasmia, which you need to find out, or some other dysfunction that is plaguing you. Always go see your doctor. There are, some causes, and like I said, we'll go through women and men. Now, they do start out with women, so we will give I will give you a couple of the causes of it in women, which is multifactorial. They're multifactorial, as they so plainly put it. Obviously, medications, anxiety, or other psychological crises, drug or alcohol use, gynecological. I'm a female and having difficulty saying this word. Is that too funny? Gynecological. Yeah, you got it. Medical issues, meaning issues down in the genital region. How's that one sound? Or uterus, vagina, anywhere below the belt. Hormone changes due to aging can also be in there. Obviously going to see the doctor and making sure, that you do, vagina gets a clear bill of health, because you do understand that if you weren't stressed before. You are stressed now, which is not helping. It's just kind of sort of adding to the problem. So remember that as well. You always become, when you're going to have sex, maybe for the first time, there's a little bit, anticipatory anxiety in there, but once you get past that stage, you can basically relax. But if you've been with somebody for a long time, then all of a sudden you realize you're having this issue, there becomes a lot of distress associated with being unable to experience an orgasm. Now, obviously, one of the main ways women can get to that orgasmic love is through clitoral stimulation, not just vaginal penetration. We know that. You might have to work a little harder on getting a little stimulated there. Could be that as well. Now, also, overall, if that does not work, or you're still having the issue, you need to start looking into like sex therapy or sex coaching, go out there. Like, you might just want to even go out there, and it may just help you to find different ways to enjoy sex. You may have to kind of switch up some positions in the bedroom. If remember, this is all about finding out and doing and learning. And if you're suffering from this might just be the main issue, that because you do the same position all the time, you've gotten to the point where your body's like, can't be bothered. Switch it up in the bedroom. Obviously, masturbation, using vibrators, all kinds of things to switch up and do a lot of change where your body's not expecting it, which may just trigger off a new sensation, which will trigger off that orgasm. Oral sex, if you want to find out something else, it might just be that maybe one day, just out of fun, everybody thinks they know everything about the other person's genitals. Get a tutorial and a know your vagina video for your counterpart, or for the man, do the same for yours. There is that. And it isn't hopeless. You can have and get through this little bit of a problem with reaching an orgasm. Do not. Worst thing you could possibly do is make your partner feel worse than they already do. Now, if you already know the reason why you're not having an orgasm with that particular person, well, then you need to reevaluate your relationship, because it's going to ruin that. So it'd be easier if you reevaluated and communicated, instead of having that person go through more distress than what they are doing because you're not saying anything. And that's more, it doesn't help them to move on or to do anything else with anyone else, because now you're basically just giving them PTSD. And if you don't like it, why should your partner? Remember that. And I'm just putting it out there. So, there are lots of things that you can do. But this is what we are talking about right now, and the focus. So, let's get a little bit more in depth with Anorgasmia in women. Some, symptoms, diagnoses, treatment, and all that good stuff. And then we will go on to the men. Now, obviously, as stated earlier, orgasmia is the medical term for regular difficulty reaching orgasm after ample sexual stimulation. Okay, so I gave you a little bit more of the medical dictionary version and definition. That lack of orgasm distresses both you and your partner, and or it will interfere with your relationship with your partner. That I did say. Obviously, orgasms vary in intensity, and women basically vary in the frequency of having orgasms. Again, they can lie and fake it. Men, you're a little hotter because women know that once you have an orgasm, you go boop, boop. Although I'm sure there are men out there that do not. They just get even more pumped up. But there you go. The amount of stimulation needed is also different and varies in frequency to trigger an orgasm in a woman. And on that note, I'm going to leave you hanging there because we're going to take our first break in the show. And when we come back, we will pick up where we left off. Also, got a cool new position for you guys this show that I will bring to light. I don't know when yet, but I will. And possibly bring out, a little discussion about fubbing. Yeah, I got you interested. That's a good thing. So, on that note, please get a drink, get a snack, come back, get relaxed. And I will meet you back here after the break for more Sex Talk with Andra.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice break and you are ready for the long haul, where our topic is about Encommasmia. The inability to have an orgasm. Right now we are focusing in on women. Then we will talk about men. And at one point in the show, I will give you a new position. And if we have enough time, we'll talk about fubbing. If not, that will be put on hold till later. So right now we are talking about this disorder of not being able to have an orgasm. Now, we know daily stresses of life will interfere with that as well. So, if you're already having issues, you are adding a lot more distress in your mind and on your work plate and everything else, which makes it 10 times worse. Please do see a doctor if you feel that this is not getting better. Changing up positions, you might want to have to try something a little bit risque or whatever. And knowing that, women need some form of clitoral, direct or indirect stimulation. Whereas, climaxing, as they're calling it, or orgasm, having that full-blown orgasm is not reached through penetration alone with women. And we will tell you that. Plus, there are changes in the orgasm with the age, medical issues, and like I said earlier, medications that are being taken. Obviously, if you're happy with how your sexual relations and sexual activities are going, obviously, no need to be bothered by anything because you are not, I won't say in any way, but you're not really being affected by that inability to have an orgasm. So no need to go to the doctor if you're accepting it and working through it. Now, if you're bothered by it, and this is that lack of orgasm or that the intensity of the orgasm that you're actually having, do go talk to your doctor regarding Angorasmia, because that could be an issue. Now, some of the symptoms that go along this with women, is a feeling of intense physical pleasure and release of tension from an orgasm. These are, that feeling that you generally would get from orgasm. And that's accompanied by involuntary rhythmic contractions of your pelvic floor muscles. Yay for pelvic floor muscles. However, if you aren't exactly getting that, or something's just a little off, these symptoms are what you need to look like. It shouldn't look like the movies, but hey, if that's where you're going with it, go on. And the orgasm is not the same in every woman either. So it may not always be Anorgasmia. It might be something else because, orgasms vary from woman to woman. It is an individual feeling for the, whoever it is. It always differs orgasm to orgasm, Obviously, the major symptoms are the inability to have an orgasm or long delays in reaching orgasm. That is just, very distressing to you. But there are 3 different types of Angorasmia in women or in overall. Now, there is lifelong Angorasmia, meaning that you've never had an orgasm at all. Could be hard to believe, but there are those individuals out there who cannot. Acquired Anorgasmia, which is used to have those orgasms, but now have really found problems reaching that peak in an orgasm, that climb, that enormous orgasm. There's situational Angorasmia, where you have an orgasm only in certain circumstances. It really, person can only have orgasm if they're watching porn. That's situational. They're unable to have it unless they're watching somebody else do it, or watching that video, or watching some sort of porn. Okay? So, others are such as during oral sex or masturbation, or only with one particular partner, like you've really turned off your body to everybody else. And we have a tendency to do that because we found, oh my God, the sex was so good, and you become comparing it to that individual. Don't do that if that's not the partner you're with, because you're not helping yourself and you're not helping them. So remember that. Now, There's also generalized Angorasmia, whereas you are not able to have an orgasm in any situation or with any partner. Eek. That one's tough. How do we find that partner? Or if you're with that partner, holy crud. I can't even say what goes on the beach from there. Now, you always go, if you find that this is an issue, women are a little bit more comfortable talking about it with the OBGYN because we're a little bit more open about ourselves. Men, on the other hand, don't want to talk about the doctor about their junk, as they call it, their genitals. Because if there's something wrong down there, OMG. It's going to be out of commission. It's the first thing that hits a man's head and process in the mind. That's not what it is. You should be able to talk to your doctor about anything. Women have their own OBGYN, which concentrates on that. I think that's why it makes it that much easier for women. Men, on the other hand, I don't think you have a GYN. Yeah, no. Remember, you're an outie, we're in East. So, do talk to it with your general practitioner. And we'll get a little bit more intense with men when we're done with women. So the focus is on women right now. Moving right along, and some causes. Obviously, as everyone's been told, orgasm is a complex reaction, and this is the medical dictionary term, to various physical, emotional, and psychological factors. Difficulties in any of these areas will definitely affect your orgasm or your sexual performance in general. We don't have a tendency to separate things out. When we're in sex, we kind of sort of group things together, but if you break it down, if you're fine, you're having a great time when you are asked about it, you can turn around, this is where you realize, you're breaking it down. If you break it down before or whatever, you're a little bit more open to talking to your doctor and figuring out what is actually wrong. Now, there are physical causes, as mentioned. There are a very wide range of illnesses or physical changes or obviously medications that have a big tendency to interfere with having orgasms or even sexual performance in general. And they are medications like for your blood pressure, mental health issues, things like that. I'm sure there's a ton others out there. Obviously, any medications that's going to mess with your nerves is going to have either a positive or, that negative effect. Hoping it's more positive than negative. But it does happen. But the medications are put in place for you to feel better. So you really, really need to talk to your doctor because they may be able to tweak your medications a bit, whereas get your body back to some normalcy. All right. So, diseases that can interfere, which is serious illnesses. And one is multiple sclerosis, MS, which has been a very big disease that has been affecting a lot of people. My heart bleeds for them. Parkinson's disease is another coming more out. A lot, that's something that as we get older or whatever, it affects us. So some people get it, some people don't. Now, the associated effects that come with these affect an individual psychologically, which can also, affect having that orgasm. I mean, these are two diseases that affects the nerves and the muscles. And that is hard enough alone. And then not being able to control an orgasm in all of that is that much more distressing. Remember that. Another one is the gynecological issues. Yeah, like those surgeries, women's surgeries, a hysterectomy, cancer surgery. They have big effects on orgasms. And what I mean by cancer, I mean cervical cancer, ovarian cancer. That has to do with anything down in the genital workings. With that lack of orgasm, it's basically always associated with sexual concerns as well, such as uncomfortable or painful intercourse, which just adds on to everything else that is going on. Not very helpful. Although there are ways to work around the pain and to help your partner with that, which makes it, that much more easier for them. But when we are talking about Angorasmia, it is something bigger than that. Now, next is medications. Obviously, believe it or not, the many of the over-the-counter medications saying you go in, they're going to enhance your orgasm, or they're going to keep you hotter or wetter or anything like that. Believe it or not, that could have the opposite effect and inhibit an orgasm. As I said earlier, one of the biggest is blood pressure medicine that is generally prescribed, and the antipsychotic drugs. But antihistamines and antidepressants, which is, also goes into the antipsychotic drugs. It's like they usually group together. Let's put it that way. They're not the same, but are used for the same thing. Actually cause a selective uptake in serotonin. And it takes, it's those inhibitors that they're called SSRIs, which means selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And these medications kind of sort of work those out. So that's where you're going to have problems. Now, on that note, we are going to take a break here. When we come back, we will finish up with the women, go on to the men. So, please, totally up to you if you want to replenish your snack in your drink, but please do so because you might need a little bit more water to keep you hydrated. But I will meet you back here after the break for more Sex Talk with Andra.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Hello, welcome back from the break. I hope you're comfortable, because we are continuing on with our subject matter of Angorasmia, the inability to have an orgasm, or, just all of a sudden realizing you are having problems with having an orgasm. We'll go on men, women, right? We left off on women, and I'm sure a lot of this trickles over into the men's side of things, but for right now, we are finishing up with Encommasmia in women. And the last topic, we were talking about medications. We are now on to alcohol and smoking. Obviously, too much alcohol, had a really, really good time. Really, either you're feeling a little bit more comfortable in yourself, or it can completely inhibit your ability to have an orgasm overall. Now, smoking has an effect where it can limit your blood flow to your sexual organs. Remember, it is damaging your lungs. I know it's very difficult to have it to break. I've seen people try it, and I'm not a smoker myself, but it is very difficult. The people around you who do smoke, and seeing how that one little cancer stick there, filled with dried leaves or dry whatever, into this little flimsy piece of paper, has so much control over something probably 10 times more its size. So remember that. Now, again, last, way is aging. Obvious, as we all age, things do change. There's changes in our anatomy, our hormones, neurological system, circulatory system. All of these things can affect you sexually and sexuality as well. Obviously, in women, it's more targeted at those estrogen levels because of the transition to menopause and menopausal symptoms. Obviously, which consist of those lovely night sweats and mood changes. Big impact on sexuality for a woman. Now, if you have that, men, well, maybe something you might want to look into, but I don't think that one's going to be affecting you in any way other than the fact that you're not getting sex. And you have to be very patient and be there for your partner. Now, psychological causes in women. Obviously, this spans across to men. Those mental health problems, big ones are the anxiety and the depression. So, a lot of women get affected after having children with post-traumatic, with psychosis, and just your hormones going wacky after having a baby, because your hormones are trying to come back down. Very, 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 it's a lot that it can cause, post-traumatic, issues. Now, with women more than men, women have a tendency to have a poor body image of themselves, because we, as women, have grown up, and the perfect body was maybe a 6-inch tall doll called Barbie. That is not a realistic view of a woman, people. You got to like yourself in the body you're in. Do things that make you happy. It will boost your body image. Stress and financial pressures. Yes, if you're a single woman, definitely, making sure that if you have children, that your children are being, fed, proper clothing, houses being taken care of, you're able to maintain this. I mean, even if you're with a partner, and with COVID being the way it is, a lot of people have lost their jobs. So, it is very difficult where there's been a switch in the roles, and men get a little bit more affected by this than women, but it does occur. Cultural and religious beliefs, believe it or not. The Catholic religion and beliefs is very, very big. And if you are devout in any religion, this could, alter how you view an orgasm or sex in general. Embarrassment is a big thing. I don't think I need to say anything more with that one. Guilt about having enjoyable sex. Some people feel that when they're having sex, or they've been in relationships, or have been sexually assaulted, or something has happened to them sexually some time ago, or just recently, they're not supposed to be enjoying it. It may be how they're brought up as well, especially for a woman. Because when women are, bred, obviously back in the day, is you are supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, taking care of your man in the house, making sure the kids take care of clothes on, food on the table, and house is clean. So, you are to please your man. There is no in there, please yourself as well. So, nowadays, because, that's kind of being broken. Some people are still following those traditions, don't get me wrong. But sex is much more out there now. So it's kind of, some women may still have that guilt about enjoying sex. It's more of the man should be enjoying it, not them. You're just there to do that. But nowadays, men are trying very hard to please the women. Thank you very much, men. And as I had just mentioned, past sexual or emotional abuse. Those kind of two, are tied together and separate at the same time. A lot of things that come up. The next one is relationship issues. If you are having problems outside of the bedroom, it definitely will affect the sex in the bedroom. So, lack of connection with your partner, unresolved conflict, poor communication of sexual needs and preferences. What do I tell you all the time? Communication. Very, very, very important. It is a very intimate, bonding, all kinds of experience if you have that communication. Next is that infidelity or breach of trust between partners. I don't think I need to spell that out for you. Cheating, example. And intimate partner violence. Obviously, domestic violence is very much so an issue and does affect your ability to have orgasm. So, moving right along in our topic matter of Angorasmia, and Orgasmia. Whatever accents you want to put on it. I'm going to move into the man now. Obviously, when we think of male sexual dysfunctions problems, what do we first go to? Erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculations. It may not be that. Those are the first things we hit, and the first things we think of, and the first things we blame. Okay? They are common. Don't get me wrong. But some men are very much affected by a totally different type of sexual dysfunction. Guess what that is? Encommasmia. Yeah. So join in the fun, men. Obviously, they don't like to hear that, but we gonna tell you anyway. Now, with male Angorasmia is persistent or recurrent difficulty achieving orgasm, or the inability to reach orgasm during sexual stimulation. Pretty much the same as with women, but more focused when it comes to men. It can occur during sexual intercourse or masturbation. Believe it or not. You can even get yourself off. Okay? It is generally often a significant cause. As like with women, that personal distress related to sex generally caused, has different names. Delayed orgasm, inhibited orgasm, retarded orgasm. Sorry, a little bit of a giggle in there. Or ejaculation or inhibited ejaculation. So remember that. These are because of its effect on sexual performance. This is where we're getting these names from. And pleasure, which is in there as well. Obviously, like with women, they cause issues of anxiety, frustration. Well, in men, it's frustration and sexual dissatisfaction. And usually, what do you guys do? You blame the woman. It may not be the woman. It could be you as well. In men, it leads to other sexual issues, which now come back to the erectile dysfunction and a reduced sex drive. They're like with women, two groups that it is characterized in, the primary and secondary. So that doesn't change that much or at all for that. With primary, it typically is always defined as Angorasmia that affects a man for the entire sexual life. Oh my God. I know that just hurt. I felt the stabs going in. Now, if you're affected by the primary characterization of this particular sexual dysfunction, it's really, they doctors have found that it's difficult, slow, or impossible to reach an orgasm beginning from the first, way back when you had that first sexual encounter, even if it was in the boys' room or behind the school or something. But it affects you so much further back than it would a woman. Secondary obviously develops after a period of normal sexual experiences, meaning you have had sex all the way up and you're moving right along and enjoying it. Then all of a sudden, boom, this happens. So, not something that you want to happen or to occur. Now, with secondary in men, you can also really or may notice that you can no longer reach an orgasm and ejaculate. And this is even after having years of sex or pleasing yourself, a lot of solo play in there. And this, no issues were involved with that. It's like all of a sudden, your secondary is much more intense than a woman's. It is very less common in men than it is in women. But when it does hit men, it is much more devastating to the man. So remember that. There are a variety of factors that may cause or worsen it in males. Obviously, like with women, psychological. There comes our good friends, anxiety and depression. Physical, such as like nerve damage, loss of penile sensitivity, and the use of certain medications or hormonal health issues. They're there. Now, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on those. But after we take the last break in the show, so completely up to you if you want to get a drink or a snack, but I will meet you back here. Make sure you're comfortable after the break for more sex talk with Andra.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Welcome back to the show. Sorry for the quick rush off. Had a tickle in my throat and I didn't want to put you on pause and then come back. Had to get that little bit of a tickle out. We are still discussing Anorgasmia, but as promised, the sexual position for the show and for today is the butter churner. Now, obviously, if you're flexible, into yoga and all that good stuff, or you just like contorting yourself in positions, this is very good for you. Okay. And really needs some thought process and take a little time to get in there. This is also great for if your partner is a little bit on the smaller size in the genital area, or if you're using a strap-on. So, and it helps to get a lot more deeper within your partner. Now, to do this, the butter churner, you lie on your back with your legs raised and folded over you so that your ankles are on either side of your head while your partner squats and penetrates you. So obviously the person in the receiving, if it's heterosexual, it is the woman, and even in same sex, it is who's ever wearing the strap on at the time. Men, either or. So it is quite a funny looking position. It's almost like if anybody remembers the exercise called the bicycle. When you're laying on your back, you lift your legs up in the air and you're supporting your back by your hands and elbows, whereas then you start to move your legs in a pedaling motion. The only difference with this is you're not pedaling, your feet are up by your head, but the bottom of the position is the same. So, if you know what I'm talking about, I don't think I need to tell you anymore. Look up that exercise. But do look up the butter churner and try it out today, because it looks like a really cool and more penetrating way. Might even help out with showing you a new, exciting way to get an orgasm that you never thought that you could get. So remember that as well. We always want to find better ways and deeper ways to have an orgasm, especially since today we are talking about the inability to have one. So, as we go on and we continue with our topic, this time we are talking about the men, and we are to the psychological factors of the anorgasmia. And obviously, like women, depression, but it is more common in men than in women, believe it or not, and it affects them differently. Also, it has more effect on the genitals and on their erection. It reduces their sex drive, or overall, you begin to really badly suffer from anorgasmia. So, anxiety, again, there are different kinds of anxiety that are out there. There is anxiety that relates to sexual relations, fear. When you go in and you're having sex, you have a fear that you're going to get your partner pregnant, or if you're just, having fun, you're not ready to, you're doing a lot of casual sex, that fear of having, or pregnancy, if they come back pregnant. Granted, I am hoping that you are using protection, but a condom can break and other things can happen. And I know that you probably turn around and would say, my God, I used all kinds of protection. Always, it can happen. Don't think everything is foolproof. Also with men, sexual trauma. And from that trauma, sexual trauma affects men and women. I have, the notion is that it affects a man more because men's pride in their genitals and all that good stuff, and the manliness and the macho-ness that is associated with being a man. You are not infallible, so remember that. You are human, and things can happen to you as well. Lack of sexual arousal is the next one. Obviously, having that little bit of no sexual arousal, that little bit of of non-existent sexual arousal can hinder having an orgasm, has an effect on it. Now, especially with the men who are taking erectile dysfunction medications, you may be able to get an erection However, you're not going to have the associated feelings of sexual arousal, and you're going to find it very difficult to have an orgasm. Now, obviously, they say if you masturbate too long, you go blind. Quite a myth. But it is an old saying. But the next one is masturbation nonetheless. Now, obviously, over time, masturbation can affect your sexual performance and habits. Why is this, people? I can hear you telling me. Obviously, if you masturbate too much, and then when you're actually going in to have sex, it's either not doing to your liking, or you just, aren't feeling it anymore that way. It's in where, only masturbation will get you off, or it doesn't get you off. It's obviously a known fact that most men actually find masturbation more pleasurable than sex. And this is actually due to certain masturbation techniques that guys have, and then, in sexual fantasies. Obviously, that can happen with women as well, but it is more of a man thing. Not to take away your solo play, women. Continue on. But, obviously, men are much more in tune to masturbate, and they get more pleasure. They can sit there and watch a porno film, or just while they talk to somebody on the phone or whatever. You know what I mean? Women can do it too, but it's a little bit, because they are outies. I'm just going to go with that right now. It's very hard to explain through a microphone, but I tried my best. Now, it has found through research that men with anorgasmia have a tendency to masturbate more. There has also been found a real link between anorgasmia and unusual masturbation practices. Men have a tendency to feel that if they are not orgasming, that they need to masturbate more. That might not be the issue, men. Please contact your doctor. Now, other physical factors that can take effect, obviously, is the use of those lovely SSRIs. And they're known to, that see, that tickles back. Angorasmia is a known side effect to most of these particular inhibitors. And the common type is that antidepressant one. Although it is anti, meaning that it pulls you up, so it's an upper. It may have a different effect on you, but the majority, 95%, it does go in the opposite direction and is the cause. And many of these SSRIs do cause a range of sexual issues, especially in men. Reduce sexual desire, and that inability, that lovely inability to have an orgasm. We don't want that. But there are obviously a lot out there of medications that are prescribed for depression. If you want to look into the new, educate yourself about the medication first. And if you have issues or concerns, please talk to your doctor. Now, with men, there are use of other medications that come in. Obviously, there's antipsychotics and opioids. They have that lovely effect on your orgasm there, or your sexual performance overall. Now, low testosterone is another physical symptom or some problem that comes up with this disorder in men. Hormonal deficiencies, obviously levels of testosterone. Obviously there was a study out there and that the men who were having difficulty achieving orgasms, that 21% had clinically low levels of testosterone. So do get blood work done, get tested, because it might just be that. If it is not that, you need to take that step further. Other hormonal estrogens, obviously testosterone is one of the big and major ones. Prolactin and other hormones that are related to those prolactin levels are also associated with anorgasmia in men. Moving right along, there is loss of penal sensation. Your penis no longer wants to feel. Obviously, you start to lose penal sensitivity as you age. As women, their hormones change and they go from that transition into menopause. Men, it affects your penis sensitivity. So sorry, but I'm not. Join our world, and it becomes difficult to reach orgasm during sexual activity. Obviously, nerve damage to the lower body. If you were a boxer, well, actually, they don't hit below the belt. However, if you're into martial arts or anything or whatever, or you've gotten kicked in the balls too many times by females for inappropriate comments, or you had a spinal cord injury, surgery on the genitals or the prostate, pelvic trauma, diabetic neuropathy, or any nerve damaging diseases are a cause for anorgasmia in men. Because of the way you are built, we are built differently. So, obviously, there are treatments all around with this in men and women. However, there is not just one pill, that one size fits all treatment that's going to help your orgasm or to treat this disorder. You have to go in. Actually, there's really no medication out there at all for it. I'm just going to come out and tell you that. If you were thinking about getting a little tiny pill, why do you think? Well, with erectile dysfunction, you have Viagra. I believe there's a pill for the woman now. But I think in this particular respect, women, it's a little easier because if it's a hormonal thing, especially if they are going through that transition to a menopause, leveling out their hormonal levels actually helps. But if it continues, I might have helped a little, but not all the way. Go back to your doctor and, discuss the other ways of doing or getting treatment to achieve that impossible orgasm during sex or masturbation. Obviously, if masturbation is one of your problems, then stop masturbating for a while. Like I said, there's not one treatment out there for either women or men. I think with women, there is a lot more options than men because our bodies go through so much because we are able to have children and, childbirth and all of that good stuff. And that takes a toll on our bottom half. But please do talk to your doctor regarding these. Because thyroid might also be one of your issues. Thyroid's that little itty bitty gland in there that basically controls everything that goes on in your body with the assistance of other things. But it's one of those things that if you mess with, a lot of levels are really, if it's not properly functioning, will be off. So there are other tests that you can take. And there are, for men, penile sensitivity tests that you can have done. There are a lot of them out there. Also, please do seek either psychotherapy or sex therapy. Try something else, changing medications that you're on. Like I said, read up on the medication, educate yourself. And if you find that you're already having difficulties and this medication adds that difficulty, talk to your doctor. And there are a lot of medications for hormonal issues as well, for men as for women. On that note, we are at the end of the show for today. And as always, please practice safe sex. If not for yourself, for your partner, and vice versa. If you are trying anything new, and in this case, medications, or you're having noticeable issues with your orgasm, having an orgasm, please educate yourself on some means or problems that can occur that are outside of the normal ones. And educate, please communicate, please, very, very important, because that also may be one of the causes. And as always, consent to everything that is being done. So, on that note, thank you again for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, which is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I ask that you please hit the subscribe button and then leave 5 stars and a good review. It helps not only me, but it helps the GSMC Podcast Network to know that they are bringing you what you want to hear. Also, I ask that you please seek us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because we are there. Hit the little heart for loving us, or the thumbs up and to follow us. Also, leave a comment, some good comments. Let us know what you'd like to hear on the show. It helps us. Also, just let us know how you are doing in general after listening to the show. Who's to say? So, thank you again. And on that note, have awesome sex. Either tonight, today, tomorrow, whatever time it is for you. Bye-bye for now. And until next time, this is Andra. And I will meet you back here next time for more sex talk with me.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.